I always knew my brother was a screw-up. I just never thought he'd screw me over like this. From the outside, my family looked normal. Typical middle-class life. Dad ran a small electrical business, Mom stayed home to take care of us, and my younger brother, Tyler, was the golden child. He was the miracle baby, the one my parents never thought they'd have after struggling for years. And for the first few years of his life, I got it. He was sick a lot, in and out of the hospital with breathing problems. Mom worried constantly, and Dad worked long hours to keep everything afloat. But even when Tyler got better, they never stopped treating him like he was made of glass. Meanwhile, I had to be perfect. Good grades. No talking back. Always responsible. If Tyler broke something, don't be mad. He didn't mean it. If he failed a class, he's been through a lot. Give him a break. If I got detention, grounded for a week. By 15, I was working for my dad. Not because I had a passion for electrical work, but because it was the only way to get his attention. And I wasn't just good at it, I was great. I learned fast, studied everything I could, stayed late to watch Dad handle the complex jobs. Tyler, though, he never had to do shit. Flunked out of college. Burned through Dad's money on failed business ventures that were really just scams he found online. At one point, he tried to be a day trader and lost thousands. And somehow, I was still the one getting lectures about supporting my brother and putting family first. I moved out at 25. Finally got my own place, started making real money. And then I met Lauren. She was the property manager of an upscale apartment complex we were rewiring. The first time I saw her, she was tearing into an HVAC crew for cutting corners, listing actual building codes from memory. Most managers just wanted cheap, fast fixes. Not her. She wanted it done right. We started talking. First about work, then about everything else. She got it, the family stuff. She had a golden child brother too, a hotshot lawyer who could do no wrong. We joked about starting a support group for forgotten older siblings. A week after we finished that job, she called the office about an urgent electrical issue in her apartment. I rushed over, only to find out there was nothing wrong. She just wanted to see me again. Damn good move. We started dating. Lauren was different. No games, no guessing. If she was mad, she said it. If she was happy, I knew it. She even helped me study for my electrician's license and started organizing our business's scheduling and contracts. And with her running the office, things ran way smoother. Dad resisted at first. He liked doing things the old-school way, but even he had to admit business had never been better. After 2 years, we moved in together. After 4, we got engaged. We talked about buying a house, having kids. It felt right, like we were building something real. Even my family liked her. Mom called her for help with computer issues. Dad respected her business sense. And Tyler? Tyler liked her too. I should have seen that as a warning sign. At first, it was small things. Lauren started spending more time at my parents' house, supposedly to help with wedding plans. She also started training Tyler to handle some of the office work, since Dad finally gave him a job answering phones and filing paperwork. It made sense at the time. I was working long hours, saving up for our future. Then things started to shift. Lauren changed her phone's password. She said it was for a banking app update. I didn't think much of it. Tyler started dressing better, wearing cologne, showing up to work on time. That should have been the biggest red flag. Tyler never showed up on time for anything. And then Lauren started defending him. He's actually really smart when he applies himself. You're too hard on him. You don't give him enough credit. It was like I had stepped into a parallel universe. One night at a family dinner, I caught them sharing a look. Nothing big. Just a quick smirk, an inside joke I wasn't part of. I asked what was funny. Lauren waved it off. You had to be there. Tyler just grinned. I should have seen it. All the signs were there. But when you trust someone, you don't want to see it. Then came the day that destroyed everything. It was a Tuesday. I remember because I was on a big commercial job, rewiring a warehouse, when Lauren called me. She was crying. Hard. I need to see you, she sobbed. It's urgent. My heart dropped. I thought something had happened to her parents. I told my crew I had a family emergency and drove straight home. She was sitting in her car in the driveway, gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles were white. I got in the passenger seat. Lauren, what's wrong? She wouldn't look at me. Just stared straight ahead. I'm pregnant. For a second, all I felt was happiness. We had talked about starting a family. This was just happening sooner than expected. Then she whispered, it might not be yours. Everything inside me froze. I stared at her. My brain refused to process what she had just said. What? She finally looked at me, eyes red and swollen. I made a mistake. No, not just a mistake. A choice. I already knew. But I still had to ask. It's Tyler, isn't it? Her lip trembled. She nodded. I had to get out of that car. Out of that moment. I walked into the house, pacing, trying to breathe, but the walls felt like they were closing in. She followed me inside, still crying. It wasn't supposed to happen. We were drunk. It was only once. I let out a laugh, sharp and bitter. Only once? Oh, well, that makes it fine then. She kept talking, explaining, justifying. I wasn't listening. Then a thought hit me. Did Tyler know? I turned to her, voice flat. Did you tell him? A fresh wave of tears. Yesterday. So that's why she was telling me now. Not because she chose to, because she had no other option. I grabbed my keys and drove straight to my parents' house. Tyler was in the office when I walked in. He took one look at my face and knew. Listen, bro, I can explain. I don't remember throwing the first punch. I just remember him on the ground, blood pouring from his nose, Dad and two of our employees dragging me away. Tyler scrambled up, shouting like a victim. She came on to me. We're in love. Love. Dad, who had watched me build this business from nothing, who had seen me plan a life with Lauren, stepped between us. We need to handle this like adults. And then Tyler dropped the final bomb. She's having my baby. Dad's face went white. Mom started sobbing. I looked at my father. He's your problem now. Then I walked out. And I never looked back. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. The house that used to feel like mine, like ours, was now just a reminder of how blind I'd been. The kitchen where Lauren used to sit on the counter, swinging her legs while I cooked. The couch where we made plans for a future that was never real. The bed where she slept beside me while sneaking around with him. I couldn't walk through that door. So I drove. Aimless streets, the city lights blurring together. My hands ached from gripping the wheel too tight. My chest felt hollow, like someone had carved me out from the inside. At some point, I ended up at Mike's place. He opened the door, took one look at me, and didn't ask any questions. Just stepped aside and let me in. That's the thing about real friends. They don't need explanations. I crashed on his couch, staring at the ceiling. I didn't cry. Didn't speak. Mike handed me a beer, turned on the TV, and sat next to me without a word. For the first time that night, I didn't feel like I was suffocating. At some point, I turned off my phone. When I turned it back on the next morning, the notifications hit me like a wave. Missed calls, Mom, Dad, Lauren, even Tyler. I ignored them all. But I did listen to one voicemail. Mom's. Her voice was thick with tears. Please, James, come talk to your father. He thinks he has a solution. A solution. Like this was just a business problem. Like we could sit down, have a meeting, and figure out the best way to handle this minor inconvenience. I should have ignored it. But maybe some part of me wanted to see just how far my father would go to clean up Tyler's mess. So I went. Walking into my parents' house felt wrong. Like I had stepped into a place that should feel familiar, but suddenly didn't fit anymore. Mom looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept. Dad was sitting in his recliner, serious as ever, like he was about to give me one of his lectures. And Tyler? Tyler was slouched on the couch, a busted lip and bruised nose making him look even more pathetic than usual. Dad cleared his throat. James, I've been thinking about how to fix this. I folded my arms, waiting. Since you're clearly not willing to work things out with Lauren, he continued, as if I was the unreasonable one here, I think it makes sense for her and Tyler to get married. I blinked. Then I let out a short, sharp laugh. You're joking. Dad shook his head. They're having a child. It's the responsible thing to do. I turned to Tyler. You actually agreed to this? He gave a half-hearted shrug. Didn't even meet my eyes. Oh, it gets better, Dad said. Since they'll be starting a family, I think it's only right for Tyler to take over the business. That knocked the breath out of me. I stared at him, waiting for him to say just kidding, son. He didn't. You're giving him my business? My voice was calm, but something inside me was unraveling. Dad raised a hand, like he was trying to keep me in check. Now, listen. No, I cut him off. Let me get this straight. You want me to train the guy who screwed my fiancée so he can take over my business, while they play happy family with a kid that might not even be his? Silence. Mom started crying again. Tyler just stared at the floor. Then Dad dropped the final blow. This business is still in my name. If you won't help your brother, maybe you should find somewhere else to work. There it was. Years of work. Late nights. sacrifices, building this company from the ground up. And none of it mattered. I exhaled, letting the last bit of fight drain from me. All right. Dad frowned. All right. I nodded. Yeah. You want Tyler to have the business? Fine. He can have it. Let's see how well that works out for you. Then I walked out. I didn't slam the door. Didn't shout. I just left. And I never looked back. But I did make a few calls. The next morning, I contacted every major client I had built relationships with. The ones who trusted me, not the company name. I let them know I was leaving. Gave them recommendations for other contractors. I didn't badmouth my father or Tyler. I didn't have to. The moment clients realized I wasn't handling their jobs anymore, they backed out. Then I made one more call to a competing firm that had been trying to recruit me for years. They made me an offer on the spot. Higher pay, better benefits, and best of all, no family drama. That same week, Tyler and Lauren got married at a courthouse. 2 weeks later, Dad gave them a down payment on a house. A reward for their betrayal. And me? I focused on my future. I worked my ass off at my new job. Took every certification. Every opportunity. Within 6 months, I got my master electrician license, the one Dad always claimed I wasn't ready for. Turns out, I was more than ready. I just needed to get out of his shadow. For months, I didn't hear much about the family business. I ignored every call, every message from my parents. Then, late one night, my phone rang. Mom. Her voice was shaking. James, please. We're about to lose everything. I should have hung up, but I didn't. And when Dad got on the phone, his voice wasn't the usual I'm in charge tone. It was broken. Son, I need your help. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, and I smiled. Tyler had destroyed everything. I let the silence drag out, stretching the weight of his words between us. Son, I need your help. For years, I had wanted to hear my father say something like that. To finally acknowledge that I was the one who built the business, the one who put in the work, the one who actually gave a damn. But now, when everything had already crumbled, when he had handed my future to Tyler and watched him burn it to the ground, now he needed me? I took my time before responding. What happened? Dad exhaled heavily, the kind of breath that carries more weight than words. It's bad, James. Worse than I thought. I stayed quiet, letting him talk. He had always been the type to fill silence with his own justifications, his own excuses. Tyler screwed up multiple commercial contracts. Big ones. The work was sloppy, unsafe, even. We're talking exposed wiring, no grounding, violations all over the place. The city's coming down hard, and 2 clients are already threatening to sue. I almost laughed. Of course, it was that bad. Tyler never took anything seriously. And yet, Dad had trusted him with everything. It gets worse, he continued. He stopped paying the insurance months ago. We have no coverage. If one of these jobs goes south, he trailed off, but I could already see the full picture. One accident, one lawsuit, one injury on a job site, and everything was gone. I leaned back in my chair, rubbing a hand over my jaw. And where's Tyler? Silence. Then a long, defeated sigh. Gone. A humorless chuckle escaped me. Gone. Dad cleared his throat. He drained the business account, took out loans against the company, without telling me, then disappeared. We haven't heard from him in over a week. I felt nothing. No shock. No anger. Just the dull confirmation of what I had known my entire life. Tyler was a leech. He always had been. He had used Dad, used me, used Lauren, and when there was nothing left to take, he ran. I should have felt some satisfaction in being right. I didn't. Mom's voice broke through the silence. James, we're going to lose the house. Her voice cracked on the last word. And for the briefest second, something in my chest twisted. Mom didn't deserve this. She had always been the peacekeeper, the one trying to hold us all together, even when she should have taken sides. I took a slow breath. I told you, I said quietly. I told both of you what would happen if you gave him the business. I know, she whispered. You were right. Dad cleared his throat, like it physically hurt him to say the next words. James, I need you to come back. Help me fix this. We can make you majority owner. Full control. I almost laughed. All those years. All those times he told me I was being too hard on Tyler. That I needed to be more supportive of my little brother. That family mattered more than anything. And now that Tyler had left him in ruins, now that the business was in flames, now that the bank was coming for his house, now I was good enough? I let the silence stretch. Then I said, no. Dad sucked in a breath like I had slapped him. James, No, my voice was calm, steady. This is your mess now. Yours and Tyler's. You made your choice. Now you live with it. Mom started crying. Dad started to argue. I hung up. I stared at my phone for a long time, feeling nothing but exhaustion. And then, like clockwork, another text came in. Lauren, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I need help. The baby is yours. I got the test results. Tyler took all my money and disappeared. Please. I don't have anywhere else to go. I read it 3 times. Then I put my phone face down on the table and just sat there. I should have felt something. Anger. Sadness. Maybe even relief that the kid was mine. But all I felt was tired. Like I had finally crawled my way out of this nightmare, only for it to grab me by the ankle and try to pull me back under. Lauren had made her choices. She had lied to me, betrayed me, let me walk around like a fool while she and Tyler laughed behind my back. And now she wanted my help. I got up, grabbed my jacket, and walked outside. The night air was cold, biting at my skin, but it was real, grounding. I wasn't going to let them drag me back into their mess. I had worked too damn hard to escape. I didn't answer Lauren's text. Not that night. Not the next day. For the first time in months, I felt like I had control. She wanted my help, but she had made her choice. Now she had to live with it. But ignoring it didn't stop the weight pressing on my chest. The baby was mine. It should have changed everything. It should have made me react, panic, feel something other than exhaustion. But all I could think about was how she had lied. How she had let me walk around like a fool while she and Tyler played house behind my back. She had never planned to tell me. If she hadn't gotten pregnant, she would have married him and never looked back. And now she wanted me to fix it? I sent one text back. Call my lawyer. Everything will go through him. Her response came almost immediately. James, please, can we just talk? I know I messed up, but I don't have anyone else. I stared at the message. Then I blocked her number. I wasn't her safety net. I wasn't her second choice. I was done. Days passed. Then a week. The calls from my parents stopped. I guess they finally realized I wasn't coming back. Then, one night, I got home and saw a figure standing in my driveway. My father. He looked like hell. Hair unkempt, face unshaven, wearing an old jacket I hadn't seen in years. The man who always carried himself like he was in control of everything now just looked defeated. I didn't say anything, just walked past him toward my door. James. His voice was quieter than I'd ever heard it. Can we talk? I hesitated. Then I opened the door and stepped inside, leaving it open behind me. He followed me in. I wanted him to see what I had built without him. The house wasn't a mansion, but it was mine, bought with my money, furnished with things I had picked out, not hand-me-downs from my parents. It was mine, in a way nothing had ever been before. Dad stood in the entryway, taking it all in like he didn't recognize the man I had become. He sat down at the kitchen table and rubbed his hands together, like he was trying to warm them even though the house wasn't cold. Then he sighed. The business is dead. I leaned against the counter. Yeah, I figured. His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. We're being sued. 2 commercial clients. The work was so bad it violated safety codes, and since we had no insurance, he trailed off, shaking his head. The house is next. The bank's coming for it next month. I didn't say anything. For years, that house had been a symbol of everything I was denied. It had been the place where my achievements were dismissed, where my hard work was overshadowed by Tyler's failures. Now, it was just another thing he had destroyed. Dad ran a hand over his face. I should have listened to you. That was new. I crossed my arms. Yeah, you should have. He nodded, like he had been expecting that. I was wrong about Tyler. About everything. It should have felt like a victory. It didn't. He reached into his bag and pulled out a folder. Pushed it across the table. It's the paperwork to transfer the business to you. No strings attached. I didn't touch it. Just stared at him. You always knew what you were doing, he said. I was just too proud to see it. 6 months ago, this would have been everything I wanted. Now, I just felt nothing. I tapped the folder. Where's Tyler? Dad's face crumpled. Gone. Cleared out the last of the savings and disappeared. Left a note about needing to find himself or some bullshit. Classic Tyler. I sat down across from him. He's still your son, I said quietly. Dad swallowed hard. Not anymore. I tilted my head. That's funny, because that's exactly how I felt when you chose him over me. He looked away. For the first time in my life, my father had nothing to say. I pushed the folder back toward him. I don't want it. His head snapped up. James? I shook my head. I don't want the business. I don't want to fix your mess. I don't want to be your backup plan now that your golden son is gone. His hands clenched into fists. Not in anger. Just helplessness. Mom's welcome to stay with me, I said. Just her. Not you. He exhaled sharply. She won't leave me. I nodded. Then that's her choice. Just like this was yours. I stood up, and after a moment, so did he. At the door, he hesitated. Then, so quietly I almost didn't hear it, he said, "Where did I go wrong?" I looked at him for a long moment. Then I shook my head. You didn't go wrong, I said. You got exactly what you wanted. He left without another word. The next morning, I got a text from Mom. We're moving to Ohio next month. Dad's going to look for work there. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back. You don't have to be sorry. You just had to choose. She never responded. Lauren still sends texts. She still tries to get me to talk. I told her everything would go through my lawyer. She made her choices. Now she has to live with them. And me? I've never been freer. I never heard from my father again after that night. Mom texted me one last time before they left for Ohio. Just a simple message. I love you. I hope one day we can see each other again. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't love her, but because I was done being the one who had to reach across the divide. She made her choice. I made mine. For the first time in my life, I was completely free from them. No more expectations, no more guilt, no more being second place in my own damn life. And it felt good. Lauren, though, Lauren wouldn't let go so easily. She kept trying to reach out, trying to talk. First, it was texts. Then emails. Then a call from a random number that I let go to voicemail. James, please. I know I don't deserve it, but can we just talk? I need you to hear me out. I deleted the message without listening to the rest. I meant what I said. Everything would go through my lawyer. The paternity test was real. The baby was mine. And that meant I had responsibilities. But not to her. Custody. Child support. Visitation rights. All of it was being settled in court, through legal channels, because I refused to give her another chance to manipulate me. And I knew she would try. That was the thing about people like her and Tyler. They didn't regret what they did. They only regretted losing the comfort they had before. But I wasn't going to be her safety net. The first court hearing was weird. Sitting across from her in that cold, impersonal room, listening to lawyers go back and forth about parental rights, it should have felt huge. Life-changing. Instead, I felt nothing. She looked different. Smaller, somehow. She wasn't wearing makeup, and there were dark circles under her eyes. If she was hoping I'd see her as some fragile, pitiful thing in need of saving, she was out of luck. The judge asked if we wanted to attempt mediation. Lauren turned to me then, hopeful. Like this was her chance. I shook my head. No. Her face crumpled, but I didn't care. She wasn't my problem anymore. In the end, I got joint custody. Fair, reasonable. I wasn't going to punish my kid for his mother's mistakes. But there would be no reconciliation. No second chances. We exchanged only the necessary words during drop-offs and pickups. Nothing more. And honestly, it was easier than I expected. I had my son. I had my life. And I had something I never thought I'd have: peace. A year passed. Then 2. I built my own company, something entirely mine, and it thrived. Turns out, when you don't hand the business over to an entitled idiot, good things happen. I started dating again. Nothing serious at first. Then, one day, I met someone who made me realize that love wasn't supposed to feel like a constant battle. She was kind. Steady. The opposite of everything Lauren had been. And I didn't have to prove my worth to her. She just saw it. One day, after picking up my son from Lauren's place, he asked something unexpected. Dad, do you still love Mommy? I kept my eyes on the road, gripping the wheel just a little tighter. Why do you ask, buddy? He shrugged. She looks sad sometimes. I thought about that. Thought about all the choices that led us here. Then I said, I don't hate her. But love? No. That's something you don't just get back. He was quiet for a moment. Then, in the way only kids can, he moved on. Started talking about his favorite superhero. And that was it. No anger. No bitterness. Just the truth. I wasn't stuck in the past anymore. I had everything I needed. And that was enough.